Welcome to the Mischief. I'm Vallen, and this is Guild Wars 2, Path of Fire Elite Specialization for the Ranger, also known as the Soulbeast. Today I'll be covering a lot of the different skills, abilities, pets, and effects that this character can do and is capable of, as well as its new weapon, the Dagger. So as you can see here, I have a new pet. I figure I'm going to go over those first. The pets, you've actually had more added than I had anticipated. If you look here, we currently have a cheetah. We have also the sand lion. And if you have your pet management bar a little bit higher up, it'll probably be easier to find. We also have the jacaranda, the fanged iboga, and the rock gazelle. I'll be going over those a little bit at a time, but you should be aware that with your new Elite Specialization, you can also kind of merge with your pet and gain special abilities. Each pet may be put into a specific area that it will qualify for, meaning if you combine with them, they may gain special things. Like in this case, the cheetah is considered versatile, and I will gain a vitality bonus and a concentration bonus. There are others like stout, deadly, ferocious, and supportive. Each one will increase your attributes appropriately. Some will include, like stout does toughness and vitality, deadly does condition damage and precision, versatile, as you see here, increases vitality and concentration. Ferocious is power and ferocity, and supportive is vitality and outgoing healing. Regardless of the bonuses that they bestow, your health pool should increase at least a little bit, which can be helpful in general, especially if you like the Ranger class but you don't care for the pet or the AI is not agreeing with what you want it to do. This is one way of just eliminating them by just sucking them up. And therefore your pet management is no longer there. You don't get to switch back and forth between pets, but you do get to use some of their new abilities. That is just one of the new things that you can do as a Soulbeast. Something that should be pointed out straight away is that with this Elite Specialization of Soulbeast, I cannot also choose the Druid Specialization. It is one or the other. You cannot have them both going on at the same time. Also, something of note is that with the equipment, the most effect that I could have is if I remove some of my equipment, my stats will still stay the same regardless of what I change them to. The only thing that would change is actually the armor on this case, so there is a little bit of a glitch with this demonstration weekend that we're currently in. But now that you know this, I'll just be showing you some brief information about the character and their abilities. So starting with the pet, the cheetah is pretty cool. It has its one regular ability to shadow step. So if I choose this character here and I tell it to attack and then shadow step, it will immediately teleport to that target and do some damage, which actually is pretty good. The cheetah is very damage heavy in my opinion, as most of the cat or feline pet styles are. But if you merge with it, you of course gain some special abilities. I'm only going to show you some of the special abilities of the new ones, as there's a lot that you can gain from the Soulbeast effect on each and every single one of these ones. Some of them are going to be duplicated as well. So if I choose this guy here, I then can bite my foe, which may be a little bit confusing because it is more of a punch, but I also gain other, effects of just that extra damage in a shorter range. Now if I choose this one, I can choose to slash the foe 2 times and do some bleeding stacks on it, as you can see. And then I can always bite them as well. Also, I can prelude lash. So if I back off, I can then choose to actually try and immobilize anybody that's running around. So if I choose this guy here and I want to try and bind him, this does not go out in a straight line effect to attack. It actually does an immobilize in an area, a radius of 300. So if I stand between these two and choose this, it will then bring them together, and I can do a bit of damage as well as do that immobilizing effect for 2 seconds so that they cannot move. Now this is in a PvP environment, of course, so therefore they're just going to teleport back to their home spots. So that's just one of the examples. Now if I back out of this, I will have a cooldown of around 10 seconds before I can then switch out into another pet Soulbeast. But I can still switch my existing pets. In this case, I have a juvenile sand lion, whereas before I had a cheetah. And this guy looks a little bit, I don't know, more rock-like, like he's a kind of an earthy lion and made of stone instead. So let's have him attack this guy here, and he has, of course, a powerful roar that blinds nearby foes, but it also goes in a very large area. A radius of 300, but it seems currently it's going a little bit further than that in my opinion, but it could just be that the hitbox of this golem here is a little bit close. So if I were to merge with this guy, I then gain the ability to bite and bleed, very similar to how the other one was. So it's not going to be too effective, but I do gain this other one here. Worldly Impact, which if you notice, these are both, like, this is a bite, this is a maul. This one here has a special descriptor, Beast. That will come into play later on when I start going over more of the abilities that you can gain from the Elite Specialization. But just know that you can jump up and slam the ground. Currently, I have some extra effects going on that are listed in blue from some of the abilities there. But it does good damage in an area. It's not too big of an area. As you know, so the radius is 240, so it wasn't going to actually reach this guy. But then it will recharge 25 seconds and so on. I can back out of that, and we can pick some new pets. So, if you drag your pet management screen up a little bit, you can see there are other ones like a jacaranda, or in this case, a rock gazelle, which I think is kind of silly, but the way that it attacks is rather entertaining. So if I tell the gazelle to attack, I think he currently is having a little issue with choosing an enemy to attack, so I'm going to choose to attack something with a bow so that it will better lock on. There we go. I'm just going to shoot this guy so that my gazelle will start attacking it. It will do a bit of damage, and then it'll just hold off. You think, well, that's crappy. What's it doing? It's missing the attacks. No, it's winding up for a big charge. And then it will charge and charge and charge, because that's pretty much what it does. It rams your enemy. You can also toss your foe into the air, but hopefully that target is going to be standing still. Otherwise, they're not really going to be doing too much there. Now, switching into beast mode, I then gain the ability to kick and cause vulnerability, as well as charge at my target, which is really, really entertaining. So if I choose this guy here, and I choose to charge at my target, I will then just run up to a range of 1200, which is quite impressive. Or I could just kick the enemy for, a little bit of damage. It's not too bad, just a big kick there. But I can be a good distance away and charge at him. And it just kind of practically doubles your speed, so you can close the gap very quickly. And then, of course, I get my worldly impact of jumping up, slamming the ground, and doing a bunch of damage, plus giving myself fury and quickness. So then I can finish him off with other abilities. Now, if we switch this out, we've got our jacaranda, which, if you look on here, is going to be a little bit different. He's a supportive style, so he gives you a bonus to vitality, healing is increased per target, but he isn't just support if you merge with him. Currently, just know that, so I could have him fire a missile at this guy, rooting him in place for a short time, which would be really cool. But also on top of that, I could soul merge with him, or turn into a soul beast of the two of us, which grants this little effect, by the way, of the swirling vines and the glowing gas. But then in this mode, I can then actually cast a little bit of a spell. I could do some area damage with this, casting these, and it will do a bit of a lightning bolt in a small area. I can also restore health, so it gives me a secondary healing ability. Very handy indeed, giving myself a little bit of regen on top of that, and some condition removal. Plus, you can use your spiritual reprieve, or your beast ability, a big healing buff, giving you resistance so the current conditions don't affect you while that's happening. And then, of course, I gain Fury and Quickness from my extra special abilities that I will go over shortly. But this also affects your allied targets, so you can do some massive healing around you. No longer are you restricted to the Druid ability, but it does have a longer recharge to do so. Hopefully, that's a big enough pulse and benefit on your party to help them last longer. And, of course, the jacaranda is more of a melee attacker. It is just a floating root ball, after all. I mean, he kind of has a big smile on his face there, but yeah, you get the idea. He's a big plant. Now we switch out to the very last one here. We're going to we're going to go with the Juvenile Fanged Iboga, which looks really interesting. It's basically a plant worm that shoots targets in a way. So if we have him attack this guy here, we'll just click on it. There we go. You'll see he starts shooting stuff. He'll chase it around a bit, and then he'll also occasionally drop a bunch of stuff on the spot. Poison, causing confusion, and all sorts of interesting stuff. Well, if you see here, there we go, causes confusion and torment on a foe. Lots of confusion is what his ability is, plus immobilization. So he's pretty good for that. He's not a heavy damage, but he can be a very controlling character, especially when you soul merge with him. You can then launch a projectile that inflicts conditions. This guy here, for example, I can then cause confusion and torment, which is great. Plus, I can do some more confusion with a glob of confusing spores at the foe. Often the confusion abilities are more centered on a PvP nature, since a lot of enemies won't use their skills as often in a PvE environment as they would in PvP, but still useful nonetheless. You can tap in your Primal Essence to do some more bleeding and more vulnerability on there. So you can do this in an area, quite effective. You can see a radius of 360, so I was able to encapsulate this medium golem at the same time. Very handy stuff. As before, there are a ton of pets that you can choose from and check out all their different stats and abilities with how they can help you out and which ones would be best combined for you. I'm not going to go over all of those or else we'd be here all day. What instead I'm going to go over are more of the skills. We now have ability to have a dagger in our main hand as well as our offhand. Before it was just our offhand. So we now gain this. Quite a bit. The Groundwork Gouge allows you to swipe past your foe's defenses, basically giving vulnerability and some damage on up to 2 targets. Then your next one gives bleeding on, and some damage on up to 2 targets. Then you can slash again for poison and damage on up to 2 targets. Then vulnerability, bleeding, and poison on up to 2 targets plus some damage. So it's really good as usual on the very last attack. Each one takes a little bit of time, but it's a very fast attacking ability. So you can see here, I know that somebody else is attacking at the same time, but tons of status effects are being stacked on here. Let's see if we can actually do this on this guy here. Poison, vulnerability, bleeding, all sorts of stuff going on. And of course, my little Fanged Iboga was adding in confusion. It's just a whole ton of conditions going out with this kind of setup. Now your second attack, Double Arc. Rip your blade through your foe twice. This just basically adds more condition damage instead of condition effects, which is going to be your bleeding and your poison. Plus, it's got damage times 2, so you do get 2 swift attacks out of it. So it's much faster if you do use your Double Arc, but it does have a recharge of 8 seconds. And your pet's next 2 strikes inflict poison as well. Now, of course, with your instinctive engage here, you'll have leap forward and slash at your foe. So you can see here, I am targeting that heavy golem. I click it. I then jump at the target. And it's a range of up to 400. So it's pretty good distance, just a little gap closer in case somebody's escaping. Then usually you could continue on with your Double Arc and your Groundwork Gouge just to finish them off. So if I have somebody nearby or trying to escape, like this guy here, then I could always target him. But instead, I'm going to just do 3, 2, 1. And you basically do a lot of stuff. But you'll notice that when I hit my 3 ability, it's still there. I have multiple charges. And you see it has a recharge time of 15 seconds. So I could feasibly use it a second time for another gap close and then wait for it to happen. Or I could just use it. So it's 1, and then I'll have to wait about 10 seconds for it to recharge. It might actually be beneficial just to use it, and use it again, so that you can basically do a recharge that's shorter over time. Right now, it's just 1 second intervals, and then you have a 10-second recharge on it normally. So if you don't want to use the charge system, or you are more interested in just trying to get those out as often as possible, you could time it every 15 seconds, or you could do it 15, 15, 10. So therefore you're just constantly chasing down your foe, giving yourself quickness, and ensuring that you're taking them out as quickly as possible. Now, the other ability besides Beast Mode, so you can soulbind yourself with your pet, as well as your daggers, is stances. There are a lot of new stances, including a new healing skill and a new elite skill, as you can see. Now, we'll start off with the healing skill, which is the bear stance. Heal yourself and your pet, which, if you're merged with your pet, there are some changes on that, but you should be able to still heal yourself, even if you've merged already. And you'll also remove conditions, and for the next, if you look here, it says bear stance 4 seconds. For the next 4 seconds, conditions are consumed for healing every second. So over the period of 4 seconds, so it'd be 2 conditions removed every second for 4 seconds when you use that. You then get this little bear icon. I know everybody's kind of standing around where I'm at right now. Let me kind of move away so that they're not all kind of crowding me. But you get that effect with the bear in the area. You give yourself an almost immediate heal for 3/4 of a second. Yes, you can be moving around while doing this. It's nothing that's going to be required. And then you move on to other stances that we have, like the Griffin stance, where you gain endurance regeneration 100% for the next 8 seconds, and you'll gain a little bit of might, which will give you some more power and condition damage. Once again, here's the bear stance, just so you can see what it looks like. Then you've got your Griffin stance, which has a little griffin flying around your head. You've got your Moa stance, which allows you to gain boons and increase the duration of boons you grant while in the stance. So it'll increase the duration is the biggest thing. For 8 seconds, it's going to increase those. Then it will also give you the boons. So you see here we've got Fury, Swiftness, and Protection just from casting that, and it'll recharge in about 25 seconds. So it's not a bad stance on itself in comparison to some of the others. I mean, a tiny bit of might for 8 seconds, plus your endurance regeneration. Maybe if you really need to do a lot of dodging, this can be very helpful. But then if you're doing a lot of dodging, the might is not really going to help you very much, unless you're relying solely on the condition damage that you've already applied. So I find the Griffin stance to be a little bit counterproductive in the fact that your endurance and might are increased. It's kind of a one or the other type situation, especially for such a short time. But we've also got the Vulture stance, which, let me click that one. You got a little vulture animation. It's kind of cool. For about 6 seconds, while striking a foe, grants you might if they're above the health threshold and inflicts poison when they're below it. So this is a either-or situation, and you can get both effects. When you first start, you will gain might to basically do extra damage, and then once their health has been dropped down below 50%, you will start poisoning your enemy, which once again, I find to be kind of counterproductive because you would want the damage over time ability usually to start in the battle instead of end the battle. So this one's kind of reversed in the way that it should be affected. But at least they are giving you a couple effects there. And it only lasts for 6 seconds. So once again, not very long. So I feel that the Griffin stance and the Vulture stance, not as good as they could have been. But going into there is another one here, and that is the Dolyak stance. This one, as you expected, is a defensive boon, and it removes conditions that impede movement. So basically, you lose immobility, you lose chill, you lose cripple, and it breaks a stun, grants you retaliation and stability. This one is pretty good, and well worthwhile in my opinion. So with your Moa stance, your Dolyak stance, perhaps something else that you wanted to add in that might also help benefit things, because I'm not recommending the Griffin in there. But then you can move on to your Elite stance, the One Wolf Pack. You're successful. Actually, here, let me hit the Dolyak real quick. There you go, just a big old Dolyak that just kind of howls quick. But the One Wolf Pack, your successful attacks will trigger a second strike while in the stance. So basically, you're kind of doubling your damage output while this is in effect. So it can be extremely powerful. I'm just going to go up and do regular attacks on this guy. And then I'm going to activate that. And you'll start seeing a lot more numbers popping up a lot quicker on there. And this is just a standard attack rate. It only lasted for a few seconds, though. As you can see, once again, 8 seconds. And then you've got to wait 60 before that does that. But it does say strike delay 1 second. So it's almost doubling. you're going to have that 1 second delay in there between it doing it. So if you're striking too quickly, it's not going to be as effective. So it's kind of cool. It can definitely increase your output, especially if you've got quickness going on. So that you're doing some double strikes in there, increasing your potential to apply conditions and so on. But let's get into a bit of the actual specialization itself of Soulbeast. Now currently I don't have anything selected except for the defaults of Marksmanship and Beast Mastery, but I chose Beast Mastery specifically because I was curious how Beast Mode would work with Beast Mastery, since Beast Mastery often gave you benefits to your pet. And since you would be merged with your pet, well, just like in this case here, you see here it gives you special benefits. Primary attribute increase 150. Beast mode primary attribute increase 80. So therefore you still get the same bonuses, but you also gain a secondary effect when you're in your Soul Beast mode. In this case, you can see here Soul Beast ferocity increase. Ferocity increases normally, plus when in Soul Beast mode you still gain a further benefit. So it's not just, oh no, I lose all of Beast Mastery when I do this. No, in fact, you start gaining more of the abilities yourself instead of your pet, but not always. Now, if I move along here, we'll start off with you gain the ability to get your dagger in your main hand, plus turn into a Soul Beast. Nothing really too bad for the Soul Beast effect, just by, you can wield the dagger. Also enables you to gain access to stances, which, as we've already gone over those. And this is where that beast option shows up. So if you see here, you've got your normal 2 different attacks from this one critter that I decided to choose here. And then you've got your beast ability. Tap into your primal essence and unleash a debilitating roar. This is some of the stuff that you will gain from it. In this case, you pull foes toward you and bind them in your beast mode. So that's what this is allowing you to do. Further on, you've got Fresh Reinforcement. Entering Beast Mode grants you the boons that are currently affecting your pet. So if you have your pet with a whole bunch of boons on it, entering Beast Mode will grant you those boons instead. Honestly, I find that to be rather poor, but you can see the boon durations that you will also gain as well. So if you have Might, you'll gain 10 seconds of Might. If you have Fury, you'll gain 5 seconds of Fury. If the pet has Protection, you'll gain 3 seconds of Protection, etc. Live Fast. Using a Beast ability grants you offensive boons. This one is the one that I've been showing you a lot of, Fury and Quickness. You see here, just by using that, it just gives you those automatically, which can be good. Every 20 seconds, I could feasibly use this and gain myself Fury and Quickness on any beast that I merge with, which is great. Then you've got Unstoppable Union. Entering Beast Mode breaks stun and causes your attacks to be temporarily unblockable. That's not too bad. Having your stuff to go through and hit your target is going to be very strong in PvP, especially when it breaks stuns. Moving on, you now have Furious Strength. You deal more damage while you have Fury. Guess what? If you use your Beast ability, you gain Fury, so you'll gain that 7% increase. And this is just something that you can't really choose through, you just get it automatically. So anytime that you have Fury benefits, it'd be a good thing. Second Skin. Conditions inflict less damage to you while you have Protection. This one's heavily reliant. It sounds great. Wait, conditions do less damage to me? That's awesome. Only while you have Protection. So it's very situational. And if you have somebody stripping boons off of you or not enough protection being applied, conditions aren't going to be as big of an issue as you once thought. Essence of Speed. Gaining quickness increases the duration of other boons affecting you. Once again, another quickness and fury type item. So this can really help out. Duration increase 2 seconds. So this is a really good thing to apply more and more boons to you and your party. It's just relatively good. When you apply poison to a foe, steal some health from them. Well, guess what? If you go with all daggery stuff, you're going to have a lot of poison. I mean, just your standard attacks are applying poison. So that you then turn into a vampire, and it's unblockable. There's nothing wrong with some unblockable damage that will also heal you. Then we've got Twice as Vicious. Disabling a foe increases your damage and condition damage for a short duration. Now this is heavily reliant upon some kind of disable being involved in this case. If you don't have any or many disables, I'd recommend it might not be the best to go with the specialization, but it's still, you get this for free. It's nothing that you have to choose one or the other, but it will increase your damage 5% and condition damage for 5% just by disabling a foe. Alright, now into the really end stuff here. Eternal Bond. While in beast mode, if you would be downed, you instead fall out of beast mode and recover health. Now it does have the caveat here, this trait is unique per game mode. I don't know what the difference is for PvE or PvP in this case, but it does sound pretty promising. If you're having an issue staying alive, this might be a good way to start testing out the build so that you can therefore gain yourself that extra 4,000 healing, you gain a protection boon, and you drop out of beast mode. No big deal. You then can, potentially survive and continue on experimenting. So this might be a good starter. Later on, people will probably want to switch this out, but it is only usable once every 90 seconds. So if you jump back into beast mode thinking that you're going to automatically be able to, take out that foe with like very little health, just keep in mind it's still going to be a minute and a half before this thing will trigger again. Then you've got Leader of the Pack. Stance skills grant their effects to nearby allies for a reduced duration. So instead of just yourself, this will affect allies, but they're affected for half the time. So it's kind of situational. If you want to try this on a raid or something, I could see this being a bit better. Therefore, you can click these and start, applying these at the right times. But I don't know that it's going to have a really big impact on PvE. Perhaps unless you're fighting like a boss or something and you really want to try and help the big zerg of people around you try and survive that big hit that's incoming or something. And then you've got Oppressive Superiority. Deal increased damage to foes who have less health than you. Conditions you apply to foes with less health than you last longer. So 10% damage increase, 10% duration increase. The duration increase isn't quite as big of a thing as the damage. If the duration was like 20%, I'd say that would be really good in that. But then again, it would overpower all the other ones completely. Though I think in its current state, it might already. A damage increase of 10% when you do more damage to foes who have less health than you. Most of the time in PvE, that's going to be the case. PvP, this is going to be somewhat challenging unless you are really confident in your abilities. But it could definitely help you out either way with a damage increase whenever you've got more health, as well as duration, which is also going to do more damage. And that's pretty much it. I mean, there's tons more synergies you can go with, experimentation you can try with your different beast modes and your new pets, your little Fanged Iboga in this case, or you're so many different weird critters out here that they are really cool and a lot of fun. I do like having the pets, though in PvP they can be a little bit challenging, and this gives you a lot more of a chance to be more competitive in a PvP setting so that you're not reliant upon the AI of a juvenile rock gazelle to actually try and target that enemy. Go get him, or don't. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If so, be sure to give a like, comment, subscribe, and as always, don't forget to spread the mischief to others if you think they'll enjoy this content too. Until next time, folks, I'll see ya.